Welcome to Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we delve into the untold stories and experiences surrounding abortion. Stories often missing from everyday conversations, media reports, and even other podcast interviews. I'm your host, Melissa Ohden, the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. As the author of You Carried Me, A Daughter's Memoir, and Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, I've had the privilege of hearing the most powerful stories from some of the most resilient and courageous individuals. These stories and these people have profoundly transformed my life, and I believe they have the power to transform yours as well. Together, we will amplify these voices, share the truths that they illuminate, and challenge our culture to recognize what life is truly like beyond abortion. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Life Beyond Abortion. I am always blessed with amazing guests with different personal stories about life beyond abortion and also professional experience in this area as well. And so today I have the great opportunity to have yet another colleague in the area of life who has become a personal friend of mine, none other than Ruth Tisdale from what used to be Advice and Aid and now is Two Lines here in the Kansas City area. Ruth, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me to join you. So thank you.
And I got it right. I said Two Lines. I included Advice and Aid. This is sort of a new thing, so we're going to talk about some of that today. But, I kind of want to start with you and your story because everybody has a story. We know this. That is the beauty of God working in our lives. But also those stories tend to also drive us to do what we do in the world. So I'm just wondering if we can kind of start there. What's life been like for Ruth Tisdale, and what then drove you to being a part of what is now Two Lines?
Yes. So I think my Two Lines pregnancy clinic story is a little bit different than most people because oftentimes I've worked with people in the past that were very involved in the pro-life movement at an early age. And for me, it wasn't that way. Around 20 years ago, 21 years ago to be exact, my husband was not able to work any longer due to some health issues. And we had two young ones that were in elementary school. And that meant that mom had to go to work and become the breadwinner of the family. And so that was a very big change for us. I had done some work before, ministry work mostly, at our church as children's ministry director. I had taught at a Christian school before. I had always done something related to ministry, and I was very comfortable with that. But then I went to work in the secular arena for just a brief time, and it was with children. However, I felt like this is not what I want to do long term. This just doesn't feel like I am going to thrive. I'm going to fly here. And a friend of mine showed me a job posting for what it was then Advice and Aid Pregnancy Centers. It was a job called Director of Client Services. I had no idea what that was, except that you work with volunteers. You were supporting moms and children that were yet to be born. And I thought, well, I can do that. And so to God's glory, I got the job of Director of Client Services. But what's really funny, Melissa, is that I had done ministry work before, and I knew that once you went into that type of work, it was going to be a lot. But I didn't want to get my heart engaged in the ministry. I just wanted to go get the paycheck. But little did I know, of course, that God had a different plan for me. And those plans included me to be at that organization, at this ministry. And so he started changing my heart. And I remember going to the director's office very quickly after I started working there. And I would stand at her door and I'd say, I love my job. And so it was so awesome. Then I went to my very first conference and I saw like 700 other people that were doing pregnancy center work. And I had never heard of this, and I was so ignorant of all that had been happening for so many years. And then it was after that conference that I actually told my executive director, I think one day I want to do your job. I know, but she took that as an opportunity to coach me, to train me, to allow me to fly, and taught me more about the ministry. And then years later, the Lord moved her to another state where she's serving right now as an executive director. It took a little bit of time after she left for me to be given and to apply for the job of executive director. But here we are almost 12 years later, serving the Lord in this capacity, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Well, and my laughter comes from, relating to that sort of thing, right? Where we're like, yeah, I'll do this because whatever it is, right? Because I need the money, or because I feel like I'm supposed to say yes, or whatever it is. And then in the midst of that circumstance, our lives are changed, right? We experience more joy, more transformation, more purpose. And I laugh because I think, Ruth, if when people know you and they know Two Lines, they can't imagine the organization without you. And it's so funny because you enter into it thinking, I'll do it
Yeah.
because I need to do it. And now you do it because it is a part of who you are. You fell in love with it.
Yes. And I have seen God work in ways that I never imagined, not only for the organization, but also in my personal life. And, there's a verse in Ephesians that talks about the works that God prepared for you, because you're a masterpiece, and he prepared these works way ahead. And now I'm doing them. I'm doing the works that God prepared for me. And like you said, I remembered, okay, again, what not to tell when you're having an interview. I told them, I said, I can do 6 months maybe, but if my husband doesn't get disability, I won't be able to stay here. Well, the Lord gave my husband disability the next month, and it was beyond at that point. It wasn't even about the money or anything like that. It was about the fact that God put me in the place where he wanted me to be, and I knew and have known that this is where I need to be. And now I just celebrated 20 years last month. 20 years here. And it's just, I feel like it's one of my top 5 accomplishments, because I never imagined that I would be here when I walked in that day, 20 years.
And that you would have such joy and purpose in it. I wonder, Ruth, how many times people, and I mean, I can call myself on it still. I'll call myself out. I like to think I'm being obedient in my day to day, but like, how many times do we thwart God's will, which is ultimately to bring us purpose and joy and healing and closer to him, and right, reconciling and redeeming things? How many times are we the ones to mess it up?
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. And, to know that you are where you're supposed to be. I remember a friend of mine saying one time, you don't have to go to work, you get to go to work. And that's what it's been here for me for 20 years. I get to go to work. It's not a have to. And of course, I'm not going to paint it as perfect. I've had my moments. But at the end of the day, I know that this is where the Lord wants me to be. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And it is just who you are. I can't imagine Two Lines without Ruth Tisdale. And I mean, I just love that. It's like this mutual benefit for ourselves personally. And of course, like serving God in whatever capacity that is. These like two things, the worlds collide. I mean, this is God's intentions for us. We're blessed to be able to live these sort of lives. For people who aren't aware, Ruth, because I think, that part of your experience is not totally abnormal still in our world today. I think, obviously people know more about pregnancy centers than they did 20 years ago. But for people who aren't aware, give them sort of that that bird's eye view, what does Two Lines offer? What is the pregnancy center movement? What does this look like?
Absolutely. I'm gonna say it. First of all, I think it's a place of hope and support. It's where women come to that are facing a crisis pregnancy, when they think there's no hope, there's no way, there's only one option for this unexpected pregnancy. It's a place where they can come to and see that there is life beyond this pregnancy that they weren't planning, that there is hope, that there is support, that there is a way to continue, and that they don't have to end the life of their preborn child. And so we do that with a variety of ways. We start with a simple pregnancy test. And, Melissa, you didn't ask this question, but that's the reason we changed our name to Two Lines Pregnancy Clinic. Because when women see the two lines on that pregnancy test, letting them know that, yes, this test is positive, that's when their crisis begins. There many times there's all kinds of things happening already that may not be perfect, to have a baby. But when they get those two lines, the world is turned upside down. For those of us that saw those two lines and we were hoping for them, we had been praying for them, it's very exciting. But for those who did not want that, it's devastating. And so we are meeting them right there, and we are bringing them the realization that, yes, there are two options. There are two ways also that you can go with this unexpected pregnancy. You can choose to abort, and that will have all sorts of consequences for you, and also for your unborn baby and your partner and others and others. And then there's the life path that you can choose. And if you choose that, we will walk with you through that path and help you, and not abandon you, so that you can do this and you're not alone. So we start with that pregnancy test. We offered ultrasounds, limited ultrasounds, to confirm that there is a pregnancy in the uterus. A lot of times women rush to have an abortion, rush to take those pills, and they have no idea if there's a possibility that this pregnancy is going to end on its own. 25% of women end up miscarrying. And a miscarriage, it's a set of emotions. An abortion, I've never experienced, but I've worked with enough women that have. It's a completely different set of emotions. So we give them peace of mind through this sonogram, helps them to see how far along you are. Is there heartbeat? Is the pregnancy in the uterus? A lot of times there's possibilities that they could have an ectopic pregnancy. I know our medical director he is so careful about that. He wants to make sure that we what's the word I'm trying to find, can push that away and know that it's not an ectopic pregnancy, because that's a medical emergency. And so it's very scary and sad that women these days are taking abortion pills at home without getting an adequate pregnancy test, without getting the sonogram to get that important piece of information about, how far along they are. Is their heartbeat? Is your pregnancy in the uterus in the first place? So dangerous if they take those pills at home and end up aborting, or, trying to abort, and something is wrong with them, with the pregnancy, and is not developing. So we offer sonograms. We offer STI testing and treatment for gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis. And then we offer a lot of education for those that decide to carry their pregnancy, including care management, to help with extra resources that some women may need when they are in a situation and they think, I can't do this pregnancy. I can't have another child. Well, we have social workers, which you love.
I do. Brings
The
me
fact
great joy.
Yes, that we have social workers on site that are talking to these ladies, and walking with them and listening and providing that extra support that they need when they're facing this unexpected pregnancy and giving them hope and helping them, giving them practical help in addition to, what we can do with education and diapers and wipes and material aids. They're connecting them to other organizations. For us here at Two Lines, we pay bills. you know, um, the fact that a lot of women are struggling with housing, it's crazy. So we are able to connect them through our care management program with other organizations that provide housing. We help them with their car repairs. Oh, all sorts of different things. So we want to eliminate obstacles that women have that may cause them to have an abortion. And it's just been a great journey for us to be able to grow in different services in our menu of services to help the ladies in this process that they're facing. And of course, we have education programs as well up to 2 years after the child is born for mothers and fathers. Last year alone, we saw about 325 men that came in with their significant other when she came for her pregnancy test. That's amazing. We're giving men a voice to be able to say, this is how I feel about this. I want to help, or I need resources to be the father that I didn't have. And we have guys here that are walking with men as well because we're concerned about families as a whole.
Well, and
Um,
that's the thing that I hope people are taking away from this. I would love for folks who maybe, identify themselves as being pro-choice, who don't support a pregnancy center like Two Lines, right? I would love those folks to listen to this interview and tell me how they feel, what they think about everything that you offer. Because there are a lot of misconceptions about pregnancy centers in our world. I think that could be a whole nother podcast. Like,
yes, absolutely.
what do
Yeah.
people say about you that are wrong? But there is this perception, right? This rhetoric out there that pregnancy centers only care about the baby and they only care about the woman because of the baby and until the baby is born. And what I hear you saying, and I know this to be true, you are attempting to help women address the root causes of crisis in their lives, knowing that that is for their benefit, right?
Yes.
First and foremost, and caring about families and, right, having families be the strongest that they can be. And yes, right, we want women obviously to be empowered to choose life for their baby and not end a life. But at the end of the day, you truly are pro woman. You are walking the walk. I don't know of an abortion clinic that does case management, helping women address their unemployment or their housing crisis or, right, addressing the relationship problems. I mean, do you know of any, Ruth?
I don't. I don't.
And you're located right next to an abortion clinic.
We are. And, another thing that you said that is very important for people to know is that we are caring for her if she chooses to continue her pregnancy. But for us here at Two Lines, if she decides to abort and needs help afterwards, we're here as well. Since 2016, we have been offering a post abortion assessment, and that came because we were having women call us and say, hey, I had an abortion, I'm still bleeding, or I am not, I'm having a lot of emotional issues afterwards. I need to go somewhere to get help. I don't want to return to the place where I had the abortion. Do you guys offer any kind of help? So our medical advisory group, along with our board, decided to offer post-abortion assessment. And so we can help a woman 4 to 6 weeks after an abortion with a medical assessment and see how she's doing medically. And if there's a concern in that area, we send her straight over to our medical director's office, actually, one of our OB doctors. And then if she is doing okay physically, then we spend some time with her and checking with her emotionally and spiritually where she stands and how that abortion may be affecting her in that area. And so I like to share that because, again, we are caring for the whole woman, not just when she has the baby, but even afterwards. We're very clear. We don't do abortions here. We're not going to lie to you. We're not going to refer you to an abortion. We don't think it's healthy for you or your child. And so, but if you choose to do that, please come back. And it's really surprising, maybe not, that oftentimes they go ahead and have that abortion. But then, within that next year, when they end up getting pregnant again, we've had many of them that have returned to seek care again with that next pregnancy because they trust us and they knew we cared for her regardless of her first decision. And I love that. I want to be a compassionate ministry. I want us to be known for our mercy and our care, and that we accept you where you're at.
And I think, again, I mean, you and I both know how our very strengths as a movement and as organizations, right? The enemy takes those positives and right tries to use them against us in rhetoric, right? So folks
Yes.
who maybe are supporting abortion then take your compassion, your serving women no matter what, and try to flip it on its head and say, right, you are just using your compassion, right, to prevent people from having more abortion. That's not compassionate. You don't really care.
Mm.
You do care. You care no matter what. Planned Parenthood says care no matter what, but that's not what we hear from women. That's not what we read in their reports. If I had to look at two reports and not have a name on it, right, and go, okay, so what services are offered here? Abortion, really no adoption, no case management. And then I read another one. If you had to ask me, blind comparison, who cares more? It's very clear.
It is. It is. And again, to me, those women that come back, even after they've had an abortion, in these cases for post-abortion assessment, or even if it's several years later and maybe they bring a friend or somebody else, it tells me there was something special about this place and they felt comfortable enough that we would still embrace them and love them and accept them and serve them, even if they made a decision that they know is not what we were hoping for them. And so I think that speaks loudly, very loud, about who we are and what we do and how we care for the people, for each individual person, because we are caring for each individual person. She's the one that we have here to talk to. She's the one that we are trying to, help her with additional resources when she's struggling and when she's saying, "Oh, I can't do it because of this, this, or this." And then you can say, "Well, what if we fix this, this, and this?" That will hopefully that will help you, and you can carry on. Because one of the things that I often think, or it's so true. You may be in a crisis today, but just because you're stuck in this place today doesn't mean you're going to be there 6 months from today, a year from today. Life changes. And so it's so important, I always say, to give yourself the gift of time, especially these ladies. They need the gift of time. And that is one of the things that the abortion industry is robbing them from, when they said, "You got to do it now, there's no appointments left," or "Here, take it at home," and all that. It's just robbing them from the gift of time. Nobody makes a life-changing decision, at least most people don't, without thinking it through, without considering different options and all that. And for some reason, we think that this has to be done right away. You got to get it over with. It makes me very sad, as a woman, as a person, that we have, that this is how we are treating women and others and our culture, really telling them, "You got to do it now and you got to do it at home," and whatever. It's just very sad because now we're not really protecting the very ones we're saying we're protecting.
Right. It's a fear-based response, right? Women are already fearful, right? They're going through something. Right? Pregnancy is vulnerable. Even if you're well supported, if you've had a child before, it is very vulnerable to be pregnant, and then to have things happening in your life, obstacles, other vulnerabilities. And so that's so important that you're identifying that, Ruth, because you and I both know that to be true, that, that sort of, you take the fear-based messaging of abortion and their lobby, and then you add in the additional constraint of time, right? You don't have much time,
Yeah.
right? You've got to do this now. And so it heightens that level of fear and anxiety. And so instead of being soothed, right, and finding peace, there's more of this anxiousness about, oh my gosh, like I have to do this. There's no other option. And I got to do it fast. Because, Ruth, what happens when a woman slows down at 2 lines and has the gift of time? I mean, what do you see in women? Because I've been there sitting knee to knee with a woman. What happens when she has the gift of time?
Well, she knows, well, first of all, she knows that she's been cared for and she is been heard. That is really important for women to know that they are being heard and cared for. And they realize that, you know what, I can think through this. I need to gather all my thoughts. I need to see what really what the options are. I don't have to just rush and make one decision. They also can think of themselves long term. Again, this is me today, but okay, this is what it might look like. Because most of the women that come here are, they're not activists for abortion. They're just regular women who want to be moms at some point in their lives or are moms already, and all of a sudden they're pregnant, and this is it. In their eyes it becomes a problem, which is the other thing that it's very sad. This is not a problem, and that's where the whole sin comes into it. For some reason we made pregnancy a problem when it's supposed to be such a beautiful gift. And so they are trying to fix a problem. And again, when we get them to realize, a baby's not a problem; it's alive. A baby is there's help out there for you to be able to do a baby and life. That's the other thing. We are strong. We are strong. I speak. You know, we live in a country where there's a lot of immigrant women and men, and that's a hot topic here right now in the United States. But and maybe people will get mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. A lot of times these women that are here from other countries have gone through a lot to get here, because somehow they feel like this country is going to give them some kind of peace of mind. It's going to be better than the situation that they were in their home country. And so if they find themselves pregnant, whether it happened as they were traveling to the United States, which I have been, I've sat across those ladies who experienced rape or other things on the way here, or it happened as soon as they got here, I tell them, lady, if you made it through all that, great getting here, I know you can handle a pregnancy. Really. And that's just one extreme example. But really, we are strong. We are strong. And so we can go to college and have a baby. Is it easy? No, it's not, but it can happen. We can make it happen. We can, be moms and work. You and I are examples of that, married. And yet here we are having to work and having to be a mom, obviously, at the same time, or whatever it may look like. We can do it. So just the abortion choice sometimes it's the easy choice to some degree, but it really isn't because it had so much stuff afterwards. But it's seen as the, oh, life is going to go back to wherever it was before.
Or it's
And I,
some you're going to be catapulted into this like new area of life that you would never get to if you
yeah,
didn't make that choice.
yeah, and but you can do it, and it has been done, and it was done for years and years and years, and now all of a sudden we're telling women, oh, you can't.
Right? How
You
empowering is
know,
that?
yes, it's very weird. So, yeah, that's the other thing that I often try to tell the ladies that we meet with. You can do it. Again, it's not going to be easy. Parenting is not easy. Even when you have a partner and a spouse that is supporting, it's hard. Parenting is the hardest job I've ever had or will ever had, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, Ruth. No. Relatable.
Yeah,
Relatable. And
yeah.
again, I mean, I think that just goes back to what we were talking about, which is, right, I've seen literally when we give women the chance to just sit and be calm and right we listen, we're not telling them what they have to think, believe, do. I
Hmm.
literally have seen women like you can see the stress start to relax a little bit, right? Of
Yes,
like, oh,
yes.
okay, I don't have to decide right now. I don't have to have all the answers. Life doesn't have to be perfect. And literally for me as a clinician, I know that like peace that comes for people physically, right? It's
Mhm.
brain stem, right? So they're starting to have some peace, and when we calm our nervous system, we have this ability to think more clearly. And
Mhm.
that's the sad part that I want people to recognize is, right, the abortion industry and their lobby and the rapid fire fear, they are not attempting to calm and soothe women and help them think rationally. They are firing people up. And even though I don't work in the pregnancy center world, I see the effects of the rapid fire right through the media, through the way people come at us when we are simply providing information and education, or when we're serving women whose abortions have failed, right? It's the, oh
Yeah.
man, you're still pregnant. You need to take care of that right now. You don't want to have this baby. You don't want to tell anybody, right? It's like turning everything up a notch time and time again. And what you guys are doing is meeting people where they're at and helping them to find some peace and some calm. And I think it's easy for people to take that for granted in today's world.
Yes, yes, it is. And they, when they come here, everything that we do, when they walk in our building, we want them to feel, Melissa, that peace, the contrast of where they're at emotionally in their situation when they walk through our doors. There's a genuine love that is given to these ladies and these men, and real care. Um, and I really appreciate that from our staff. And it's nothing that I've done. It's just it comes from this heart, this compassionate heart, because they're filled with the love of Jesus, first of all. So that oozes out of them, but also they truly care for those that we work with and are compassionate and are listening to them and want to be with them and help them through the process. Recently people don't hear this. So recently, one of the social workers um, had a phone call. Actually, the client called and was very sick, and it was speaking Spanish. And so the social worker that speaks Spanish came, got the call. The nurse, eventually they realized they had to call 911. So one of the nurses is calling 911 while the social worker is translating some of the things on the phone and giving it back to the nurse so that she could tell the 911 operators, and then the ambulance got there. And she was on the phone for over 1 hour because the emergency department, um, the the emergency crew didn't have any Spanish speakers. So our social worker was on the phone the entire time providing that translation for this patient who had the highest fever I've ever heard of. I never heard of anybody having a fever this high. Anyway, eventually she left to go to the hospital to be there to make sure the woman was okay, a pregnant woman. And but it was so beautiful to see this team of our nurse, our care manager, working with the authorities, because I didn't have the help to care for one person. And I just love that, because we have story after story of the depth of our work. We may not have the numbers that the abortion industry has. I don't want their numbers anyway. Um, but the depth of care that the women and the men that come through here get, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Just recently, another story is a woman who was in an abusive situation and was headed to the abortion clinic. By the grace of God, ended up here. Um, Saw her baby on ultrasound. She doesn't want to have an abortion, but her abuser wants her to have an abortion. And we have been able to place her in a safe facility. Um, and so again, it's just, there's so many layers to what we do. And we are not a maternity home. We are not a safe home type of place. But we don't stop until we find the place or a way to help her through her crisis.
Right. You
And,
aren't looking at her and saying, "Hey,
yeah,
there's only one thing you can do, and that's the one thing we're going to do here."
yes, yes. And so at that moment, it wasn't about the baby. It was about making sure she was in a safe place
And it
as a
really
person.
makes you wonder, doesn't it, Ruth, if she wouldn't have come there, would it have ended in a good way, right? Would things have ended that way for her? I
I know.
I would I would err on the side of saying I don't believe that she would have gotten that help and support.
Yeah, I thought about that too. She would have lost her child to abortion because that's what she was headed to do. And then she would have lost her freedom in a way, because she would have probably gone back to this person, to this man who is not taking care of her, obviously. And so it was just so beautiful to watch my team just until it was past close time and they were still working, trying to find the place and provide transportation for one, again, for one. And so were we successful that day? Absolutely. We took care of one woman.
And she's worth it every
Yes, she
time.
is.
You
Yes,
guys you guys walk the walk. Right? You talk the talk and you walk the walk. Your team across the board is one of my favorite teams across
thank you.
the nation. Your team knows that about me. I mean, shoot, I almost missed being at the Supreme Court because I was with y'all that night. That's a whole
Yeah,
nother conversation. But,
yes.
for folks who aren't aware, Ruth, where are you guys located in the metro?
We're in Kansas City, so we are on in Leawood, Overland Park, Leawood, depending on um, who wants to give you the city. But we're off 435 and Row in Overland Park, Kansas. Our location, we're right next door to the largest abortion facility in the Kansas City metro, where many of the abortions happen for people in Kansas, people in Missouri, people from Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Nebraska. We get them all. We have people from Houston that come to the abortion facility next to us who have ended up here at Two Lines Pregnancy Clinic. Have a couple that actually we just shared their story on our recent newsletter, because they were from Oklahoma and drove over here, ended up here at our facility, and decided to continue their pregnancy. And those are the happy stories. Not every story that comes in, every person that walks in stays when they're heading to the abortion facility. But I am so grateful that 60% of them have stayed, and their story is different because they did receive services here
Yeah,
at Two Lines.
their story is different and their lives get to be different, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I know that that's why you guys do what you do. You know, there's a lot that we could talk about, but as we close, I'm just wondering if you could share, you know, if someone is in need of support right now, or they know of somebody who needs support, whether it's, you know, during pregnancy or maybe after abortion, how do they get in touch with you guys, Ruth?
Yes, our website is twolineskc.com. You spell that number two, TWOlineskc.com.
And, you know, if folks are maybe interested in supporting the organization, that's not the website they want to go to.
Our website for our partners is unexpectedlove.com.
Unexpectedlove.com. And you know how I feel about that website. It is phenomenal. And that's the overall message, right? If we had to say what have you and I been talking about today, it's about finding unexpected love in the most unexpected circumstances.
That's right. Because when you're love unexpected, you may just love unexpected. Love that.
Okay, I want you to say that again, and that's how we're going to close because it's so good. Say it again.
When you are loved unexpectedly, you may just love unexpectedly.
And that's it, folks. That is where we're going to land today. Thank you so much, Ruth from Two Lines Pregnancy Center, joining me for this episode of Life Beyond Abortion.
Life Beyond Abortion is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions on the show are those of the host and her guest, and not necessarily those of the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more about Melissa's work at melissaohden.com or by following her on Instagram at melissaohden. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode of Life Beyond Abortion.